What's up, everybody? This is Spencer from Pixel and Brackets. We're back in Illustrator and it is holiday season, so Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you. This tutorial comes from my wife, Lindsay. I'm saying this quiet so she doesn't hear me, but it was her idea, okay? Christmas lights. That's what we're gonna make in this tutorial, flat design Christmas lights. Let's get into it. All right, so we're in Illustrator. This is what we're gonna be designing. This is sort of like the finished product. We're gonna have a little strand of lights. It might do like a loop-de-loop. I've got some glow on these and they're different colors. And they all have sort of that flat design look. We have a little sort of highlight on the left, some shadow on the right, and then it kind of flips on these bottom ones here. But basically we're gonna make one of these guys and then I'll show you how to string them up like this. So I'm just gonna grab one of these guys down here as a starter. I'm gonna copy paste him and we'll head on over to a new document so you guys can start from the very beginning. So I'm gonna go to File, New. The shortcut key for that is Command or Control N. I just do 1920 by 1080 because I'm in the world of YouTube tutorials, but none of that really matters. So for starters, and I'm gonna bring this guy over just so I know the shape that we're making. Let's look at this piece by piece. I'm gonna start with the base of this guy, and that's just gonna be with the rectangle tool. The shortcut key for that is M, and we're gonna make a little rectangle out here, approximately this shape. See, the key with this is you can make any light you want, so it really doesn't matter. Now, I want the fill of this guy to be the lighter green of the two greens we're gonna be using. So I'm gonna go up to my color panel, which is in the window drop-down color. I think it's F6. That's a guess. Am I right? F6. All right, I got that down now. I like to double click on this little swatch there and it pulls up this color picker. I'm a huge fan of this color picker because I know what I'm getting out of it. So I want like a lighter green, but something more like a muted tone, which tends to be in this circle of colors, somewhere in the grayish saturation, not fully saturated, and then pulled down from the top and bottom. So we're gonna be right in here, I think, for my lighter green, maybe something like that. Okay, so once we have that, we can switch back to the selection tool. The shortcut key for that is V, and we've got it. Okay, if we click on this guy, there's these little dots in the corners. And if you pull in these dots, it's gonna round those corners, right? I don't wanna quite round them that much, but I'll pull them back a little bit. I just want a little bit of a rounding. Command or Control plus or minus will zoom you in and out. So I can zoom in and have this shape select and sort of pull these corners back a little bit. I just don't want them quite as sharp. Now there's a couple subtle things here that you might notice that I created. You see this rounded arc at the top and rounded arc at the bottom? It's pretty easy to create that. We can select it, switch over to the pin tool, which is this little pin icon. The shortcut key for that is P. And then if we hold Alt on a PC or Option, we get this little icon, and it's struggling showing it, but you can kind of see it. It looks like a telephone almost, like a dot with an arc, two dots with an arc between them. If we just hover over the line while we hold Alt or Option, we can click on that and pull it down to create this sort of arc. And I just want a slight arc to this, something like that, just a little bend in the bottom. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna hold Alt or Option and create a little bend up here at the top. Just like that. And so now we've got sort of this shape that it's got a little more character to it. It just has a little more fullness to it. Let's create this top portion here. I'm gonna do that by going back to that rectangle tool, shortcut key is M, and just creating a rectangle the size of my shape here. So from left to right, it's the same size. We need to adjust the color of this guy. So if I pop open this color panel again, remember F6, I'm gonna double click on him and I'm just gonna pull down to create a darker green. Something in here would work all right. There we go. And next, see how I've got this sort of angled out, like it kind of, the light bulb's gonna kind of sit in there. All I need to do is switch to my direct selection tool. It's up here, it's the white arrow. The shortcut key for that is A. I'm gonna select this top left point just by clicking and dragging over the top of it. And then using my left arrow keys, I can bump that out. If I hold Shift and press a left arrow key, it's going to bump it out a little bit more. That might have been too much. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 back. So I did shift left arrow key to bump it out once, and then 1, 2, 3 back without the shift. So once again, shift right arrow key, then let go of shift, 1, 2, 3 on the left arrow key. And that matches up either side. Now I know that we've rounded the top of this bottom shape before, but I've actually changed my mind on how I want this to be layered. I do want this shape on top of this one. So what I'm going to do is just click on this guy here. I'm going to go back to that pin tool. The shortcut key is P. Hold Alt or Option right there on the bottom and sort of bring that up to create the little arc. Maybe something like that there. So now if I click off of this with the selection tool, I've got a little bit of that arc built into it. Now this top part's too tall, so I'm going to grab the 2 points here and here by pressing A for the direct selection tool, clicking and dragging so I select those 2 points only. Now once I have that, I can click on the path, hold shift and sort of drag it down a little bit to make sure it's the height that I want it to be. Somewhere maybe in there. And the last thing I can do is with these 2 points still selected with that direct selection tool, I can adjust the sharpness of the corners, and I just want a little tiny bit of a rounded corner up there. So now we've sort of got this shape set up. I want to create the indents here. And I want to make sure they're the same color as this darker green. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is while we have these, I'm going to switch to my selection tool, shortcut key is V, click on this object, go up into my swatches panel. If you don't see it, window down to swatches. That'll pop this guy out. And if we create a new swatch while we have this guy selected, it's going to create a new swatch based on this color green. And I want that to be a global swatch, so make sure that's check marked. Hit OK, and we've got a new swatch in here. I'm going to click on this, oops, I accidentally rotated that. I'm going to click on this darker color green, new swatch, global swatch, hit OK. So now I have the light and the dark green. What I can do actually is, as long as I don't have anything selected, so click off of everything, shift click, or click one, shift click the other one. That's going to select them both. I can create a folder called a new color group. And I'm going to call this light colors. So this will be the greens, but we'll also add in our other light colors as well. So we've got this folder of these light colors, and now I can go back and change those anytime I want. Pretty cool way to do that. All right, so we need to create these sort of indents in this here. That's sort of what we see on the bottom of these lights. So M is the shortcut key for the rectangle tool. We're going to grab that rectangle tool. I'm going to create just a sort of skinny rectangle that goes all the way across this element, and I want it to be the darker green, so I'm just going to select the darker green on that so it changes the fill to that. And then I can hit my selection shortcut key, that's V, to go back to that tool, and there we go, we've got that. Now I want an odd number of these, I think, so I'm going to hold Option. Let's zoom in a little, Command or Control plus. Hold Option or Alt to duplicate this piece. Click and drag it left. And we're going to just keep duplicating those. And in fact, you can use Command or Control D once you've done that once, and it'll sort of duplicate those across. And we want to make sure we have an odd number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think I'm going to go ahead and delete the last one. And I'm going to select all of these with that selection tool, and I'm going to just find the edge here, kind of click and pull it across. So what that did was it sort of made these a little bit wider. You can adjust these however you want. This might be too many. Maybe you'll want to do less and make them a little bit wider like I did in the example. But regardless, I want these to be spread out evenly. They're almost, but not quite. So we need to open up our alignment panel. I've got them all selected. I'm going to go up to Window, down to Align, pop that open, and I don't actually see what I need, or I do see what I need, but if you don't, make sure you click this hamburger Show Options. What I want is Align to Selection, and I want to click this guy right here. That's Horizontal Distribute Center. And you'll notice a little bit of an adjustment, or not, in these. They were already pretty much centered up, but just in case they weren't, it adjusted those so they were perfectly centered. Now what I want is to center this on everything else. So I'm going to select it all, right click it. We can group it together. That's Command or Control G. And so now this is one big group. I can click this group and shift click the background object. Now they're both selected. Right, or just click the background object again. Now it's sort of double selected. That means we're aligning to it as a key object. Open up that alignment panel again and make sure this says align to key object. And then we want to go ahead and align that to the center, which it already was, but let's say we were off like that. You can hit horizontal line center. It's going to center it up. All right, so we're centered up. We just need to sort of chop these pieces off where they go past. So we've got this group. We can select everything, all of this, okay? That's weird. I don't know why that's selected way out there, but all we need to do now is use the shape builder tool right here, Shift M, and it sees all these different shapes. What we want is to kind of chop off this bottom portion. So I'm going to hold Alt or Option, and a little minus is going to pop up. It's having trouble showing those, but you can see the cursor now. It's got the minus. If I click and draw through that, it's going to chop those pieces off. Now I want to do the same thing up here, but before I do that, I actually want to go back to that selection tool and select all of this and duplicate this piece, okay? So I'm going to hold Alt or Option and kind of just duplicate this piece out. I want to have a piece that I'm working on, and I also want to have a piece that is going to be like my final. So over here I'm working on this guy. So I'm going to select all this, go back to the shape builder tool, and this makes it easier to where I don't have to worry about getting rid of anything on accident. I can just hold Option or Alt, click and drag through that, and now I have these pieces with the angles that I want here, that they run along that arc. They're going to follow that line. So we're going to ungroup this first, and then I'm going to click and drag through that to select it all, delete. We're just going to delete that out. I'm also going to delete this background piece, delete. Okay, now over here, I don't want this group anymore, so I'm going to delete that. Now I've got this guy, and he's going to fit right in here. But what I want to do is make him not fit edge to edge, but just kind of come close to the edge. So I'm going to take my direct selection tool, that's the white arrow, shortcut key A, click and drag through these top points. Once I have these top points selected on this arc, I'm going to hold Shift, use my down arrow key, and that was way too much. So we're not going to hold Shift, you guys. Just press the down arrow key a couple times, and that'll sort of bring those down a little bit. So that was 2. I'm going to select the bottom ones only now. Go up to 1, 2. Okay, now if we select this, is this grouped together? No, so we're going to select all these, Command or Control G to group together. You can also right click group. Okay, once we got that group together, I'm going to bring this over here. All these smart guides are helping me center it up. So as long as it's centered, we can have that on there, but it's behind everything, so we need to right click and bring it to the front. So go to Arrange, bring to front. There we go. So that's how you do that. That was a lot, I know, probably a lot more explanation than I wanted, but there you go. Now what I'm seeing here is that our darker green maybe isn't quite as dark as we want it. So let's change that simply by going to the Swatches panel, double clicking on this green, and now we can look at this with the RGB or any of these other type of settings. If I go to Lab, I can actually sort of pull this one down a little. I'm going to check mark preview and maybe pull this down to like 20. And there you go, that darkens it up a lot more. I'm going to hit OK. And now that swatch, the dark green swatch, is a little bit darker and everything changed at once. All right, cool, we've got this piece. Let's go ahead and add the little shadow to it. To do that, just go back to that rectangle tool, maybe select a fill that's straight black. Then we're going to create a rectangle, and I'm going to use smart guides here. So if you guys don't have smart guides turned on, just go to the view drop down to smart guides and make sure that's check marked. But anyway, we're going to create a rectangle, click and drag this out so it lines up in the center there. Let go. Now we're going to go back to the selection tool, shortcut key is V, select all of this right there. And then the shape builder tool, that's Shift plus M. hold Option or Alt and just click on this outside shape, and that gets rid of it. So now we have a shape that's cut out on here, and what we can do is take the opacity down to maybe 15%, and that's going to create that shadow on that side. And what I'm seeing here is that we might want a little more saturation in this lighter green. So if we go back to our swatches, we can double click this swatch, we can select preview, and potentially we could just pump a little more green into it like that. It might be a little too light, so we can pull that back just a touch. And we could just play with these until we get it more in there where we want it, and hit OK. So that might be okay right there. Okay, so that's how you can sort of change those global swatches though. Alright, so we got this guy. We need to create the light bulb part. So to do that, we're just going to create a circle, pretty much. Create an oval. Rectangle tool, click and hold it. We can go to the ellipse tool. The shortcut key for that is L. And then I'm going to create an oval shape. Something like that right there. Alright, let's go ahead and make this a color that we want. So not green. We're going to click on, actually I'm going to go up to that color tab again. I'm going to double click my swatch. I'm going to pick a color. We're going to make it a red, something in here maybe, right there. Hit OK, there's our red. Now of course, I'm going to want to add this to my swatch group down here. I'm going to click new swatch on there, and we're just going to do a global swatch, hit OK. There it is. I'm going to drag it down into this group, and there's our first actual light color right there. We can always adjust that later, so no worries there. The global swatch really helps. Okay, so we want this thing to be a little bit more egg-shaped, I suppose, is the term. So I'm going to click on it, select my pen tool. Remember the shortcut key is P. And up here, I'm going to hold Option or Alt, and that's going to bring up the anchor tool. And if I click and drag on this while I have those held, I can create new anchors. And if I hold Shift, it's going to lock those into 45-degree increments. I want it to be straight across like this, and I'm just going to create a little bit more of a point at the top. So I'm going to bring that in like that and let go. And so there's that. What I can do with these is sort of go back to that direct selection tool, click and drag through the middle section where it includes those two anchor points, and once I have them, I can use my down arrow key to bump this down. So it's sort of dropping, I don't know, the center of gravity on this guy a little bit, maybe down into there. And then if I select this bottom point, I can bring him up with my up arrow key somewhere in there. So we're looking for that light shape. I think that's pretty close. You guys, it might come to a point more than this one does, but to each his own, right? All right, so I'm going to click this, drag it over to here, right click it, arrange, send to back. So we want it behind this guy, right? And then we just want to sit him in there. So find where you want him to sit. You can use your smart guides to help you find the center there, and you've got a light. It's in there. Okay, so let's hold Option or Alt and make a duplicate of this right out here. Now with this duplicate, I'm going to make another duplicate and bring him over. Okay, so I got two on top of each other. See that? I'm looking at the shape that these kind of cut out on the right side to make this shadow. And what I actually need to do is make the left shape bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and scale this up by clicking the top, holding Shift, and making it bigger like that. And I'm going to drag it left a little. And I'm still looking at this right side of this guy. So if I select both of them, you see how it's creating this shadow over here? I'm going to click and drag it left a little bit more. But I don't want it to hit the top here. So maybe right in there is pretty good. See the overlap between these two? That's going to be the shadow on the right side of my bulb. So if I select both, Shift M to get to that shape builder tool, and now we see all these shapes, I can hold Option or Alt and just draw through these left two sides, and now I have this piece here, which is the important piece to creating this little shadow. So once I have this piece selected, I can bring him back over the top of this guy, and he kind of lines up there with my smart guides. And then I can change his color to like this complete black, and maybe this one is, we'll find out, but it's like 15% or something like that again. So now I've got that shadow on the right side of this bulb. And to create this little highlight, all we have to do is go back into the ellipse tool, shortcut key is L, create like a really skinny sort of ellipse like this, and instead of black, we'll change that fill to a white. Go back to that selection tool. We can zoom in a little bit here, Command or Control plus, bring him over here, and maybe angle him a little bit so he lines up with the left side of that. He might be a little bit too skinny and long there. So there we go, something like that. And then I would drop the opacity back a little bit, let's say 75%, something along those lines. So that's it, that's how we create that bulb. Now if I go ahead and click and drag through this piece and group it together, Command or Control G and group it together, it may bring it to the top. If it does, all we have to do is right click, arrange, and send it to the back again. Notice how there's a little glow around this guy? We can do that by clicking on that group. The grouping was the important part. Click on that group, go up to Effect, down to Stylize, and then down to Outer Glow. And once we're there, it's going to bring this up. We need to hit Preview. We obviously want to preview it. And then we want to click on this little swatch, and instead of selecting a color, go to Color Swatches. And if you scroll to the bottom, these aren't in folders or anything anymore, but remember we put that folder at the bottom. These are our global swatches down here, and this is our global swatch for this red light, the red color for our lights. Click on that, click OK, and there we go. We've got the glow. You can adjust the opacity, you can adjust the blur to be whatever fits your style. So we might drop the blur back to like 30 on this guy or something like that. Just whatever you want. Hit OK. Now let's zoom out a little bit. We have our first light. Congratulations, you did it. Okay, if you want to change the color of this light, I don't know what's over here. Oh, there we go, we got a point. Okay, we're going to delete that. All right, we got this light. We can hold Option or Alt and duplicate him out to here, right? So we got two red lights. Well, if I use that direct selection tool and just click on this red color here, notice how the fill is this color. What I would do is go up to my color panel, double click my little color swatch, and say, okay, I want this to be a blue one. So I'm going to find the blue area, find the color I want, hit OK. Now it's blue. But what I need to do with him is create that global swatch again, because he's not in here yet. We just changed the color to a random color. So I'm going to hit this new swatch button, create a global swatch, hit OK, drag it down into my color folder down here, and now we have those colors. But look, he's still got that red outline. So I'm going to go back to the selection tool and click on this whole selection again. And if you notice in the appearance panel, whether you go to window drop down appearance or over here on the right in the properties, we have that effects outer glow. If you click on it, you can edit that effect. We click on the swatch, click on color swatches, and we can find that blue swatch we just made. Hit OK, and there we go. We got a blue light now. So that's how you can go through and make all sorts of different lights. Now, to create the strand, all I did was grab the pen tool and start to create a line here. And I'm going to switch my fill and my stroke here. So I actually don't want to fill. So I'm going to just click this little slash icon. I do want a stroke of maybe, let's just do like 5 pixels, okay? And that color, I think I want it to be this lighter color green, for instance. So I'm going to do a green stroke of 5 points. I did all that before I did anything with the pen tool. Now with the pen tool selected, and we click and drag, we click and drag in the direction we want our strand to go. So I want him to go out to the right in this direction. Let go. Okay, now we actually see where this line is going to go. So I'm going to maybe click another point up here and drag in the direction I want to go, out this way, right? So we can do that to create this strand. If you want, you could create like a little loop-de-loop part of your strand right through here. However you want this to sort of behave, we can click and drag, just keep clicking and dragging in the direction you want to go. When you're done with that, just go back to that selection tool. Now you have this whole strand here. And one little thing I like is I click the stroke option and click on the caps, round cap. It just rounds the ends of either side, so it doesn't cut off quite as harsh. Now all you have to do is take your little light, which we can click and drag, select them all, right click and group. You can take this guy and just bring him down here along your strand. You can resize him if you want, so resize this group, hold shift while you do it to keep him in line, maybe something like that. And then we need to bring him on top of the strand, so right click, arrange, bring to front. And what you might do is click on the strand, right click, arrange, send to back. That way everything's on top of it. But now we can just click on this guy, and I'll zoom in a little bit, and we can rotate him around if we need to, and sort of just place him in here, right? Just like that, as if he was on the strand. And now we can bring this guy, oop, he needs to be grouped together, group him together. We can do the same thing. I'm holding Option or Alt to duplicate him, and I'm gonna bring him around and do the same. I'm gonna kind of scale him down too. It might be, I would advise you to scale these down at the same time so they're the same size. But once you have one, you could go in and just adjust the colors of them if you wanted to. But if we flip him over like this, what I would do is click on this little flip along the horizontal axis, because imagine the light all coming from the left, like whatever's hitting this. So I want all the shadows on the same side. So now the shadow's on the right side instead of just rotating him. But there you go, and you can kind of mess with the angle of him, bring him in here just like that, and string these along just like in the thumbnail image. That's exactly what I did here. Way longer than I thought that was going to be. I'm about lost my voice during that, but I hope you guys enjoyed that tutorial. We created a strand of Christmas lights. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up down below. And, well, subscribe for more tips and tutorials and videos just like this one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.